pretty disturbing increase in mass shootings in this country.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on it, and what do you think could be done?
Well, it's awful. They're terrorist attacks, and I think it's safer to call them that. Whether depending on how you define a mass shooting, and how you define, when we look at murder statistics, we're actually at a very, very low point in our history. I mean, look at the early 90s; it was vastly more murders by gun than we have now. Just statistically speaking,
what's that because of? Do they know?
Well, there was a massive kind of war on crime, I think, in the 90s, increase in police. You had some of the crime bills that went through, which are obviously the source of a lot of debate right now in the Democrat primary. And there was an approach to fix that. Okay, tackling gang violence, tackling all of these things. And we live in a much, even though you wouldn't think so, because of these kind of theatrical. Again, they're terrorist attacks. I don't know what else to call them.
Right.
Because the person doing it is trying to commit terror,
right?
And for different reasons, of course, but or at least they attach themselves to some kind of reason. But in the end, they're angry at something, and they've probably been taking some kind of psychotropic drugs over time, and they've gotten to this point, and they'll attach themselves to whatever reason they need to do this, and it's awful. So how do you fix that? We have to understand the problem. We have to diagnose it. And then we got to, and I think we have to be realistic about what the solutions really are and what our ability to influence those outcomes really is. And that's an emotional conversation for people. We've been dealing with it for the last few weeks, of course. I mean, it's front and center in the debate. And so, but we got to have it.
What can be done?
Yeah. So obviously the reaction by many is to go after the tool, right? To go after the guns. I don't think that's the right approach. It's not clear that would actually solve the problem. There's two main requirements when you're looking at an approach to gun control. It's like, does it infringe on law-abiding citizens' rights? Number one, what's the answer to that? And two, is it going to actually affect the outcome that we're trying to affect? Is it going to feel good or is it going to do good? Okay, and I think the vast majority of proposals fail both of those standards. They definitely infringe on law-abiding citizens' rights, and they probably wouldn't even solve the problem. Look at example is assault rifles, or it's not. Well, ARs. Okay, they're called assault rifles. They're really the reason they're an AR is because they're called Armalite. That's a brand. Assault rifle is not a real thing. It's not a real definition. And but what if you banned them? Well, rifles are responsible for less than 3% of all gun deaths, about 2.66% of all gun deaths. Okay, hammers and knives, I think, are responsible for far more deaths.
Is that true?
Yes.
Hammers and knives are responsible for more deaths than rifles?
Got statistics.
Including ARs?
In my bag. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Rifles account for 2.66% of gun deaths.
How many folks are killing people with hammers?
Well, I mean, it's a good weapon, I guess.
I feel real good if somebody has a hammer. If all you have is a hammer.
Well, but yeah, if you have a gun, you're doing pretty well.
Even if you don't have a gun, I feel like I could stop a hammer.
Yeah, but you're a pretty good fighter.
Can't do a goddamn thing about an AR.
Well, that's not true. I can take away your AR if you're.
How close do you have to be to do that?
I just got to reach it. It's very easy to take away an AR.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How easy?
I just need to get a hand on the barrel.
You should give out AR takeaway classes.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've taken those classes. That's why I know it's so easy. Whoever controls the barrel of any gun controls the gun.
Right.
People don't quite realize that. They think if they're gripping it, then they control the gun. That's not true.
Right.
We're in
the weeds now, though.
Yeah, we're getting the weeds. We can demonstrate that. Afterwards. So
I have a flamethrower. Maybe you can grab that.
Yeah.
No rifles in here.
Is that what that?
That's Elon Musk's flamethrower.
I wasn't sure what that was.
Oh, you're going to take a picture with that later.
Okay. Can I actually use it though?
Yeah. We can turn it on as long as you don't cook the ceiling.
Okay, but I can cook anything else?
Yeah, you'll be the only one who's ever turned it on here other than Elon.
It doesn't have to be in the room. But,
yeah, it does though. Take a picture.
Well, obviously.
Do it in the room. So have you thought about this? I mean, if you had a magic wand and they said, "Hey, Dan Crenshaw, what can you do to solve this mass gun violence? What can you do to solve these mass shootings?"
Yeah, I mean, you have to target the source of them, and it's just not an easy conversation.
Right.
And so this let's also think about where these things started. We're talking about the theatrical mass shootings. There's a lot of statistics out there. They'll say we have hundreds of them, which include 4 or more deaths, but these are usually gang violence. So gang violence it's in a category, right?
I believe there was 279 mass shootings so far this year, and some of them they do include gang violence.
Right.
I think it's 2 or more. Is that what it's deemed, mass shootings?
Yeah, it might be more.
Which is so fucking weird that we have a statistic. Well, that doesn't count. It's only. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to draw the line somewhere, and you got to be able
Right.
to analyze. If you're going to analyze it, you have to look into that. But I think the dramatized shootings that these guys are doing, it all started with Columbine, and it's become this sort of copycat crime that has occurred over time. And we didn't have this before that, and I think that's interesting, and I think it's something to take note of. And it's not clear what you do about that. You have to look for signs of people before they do it. And so one bill that I'm on, which is I've taken a lot of fire for because the people are just, I think, misunderstand what it actually is the TAPS Act, which is the Threat Assessment, Prevention and Safety Act. All this does is give local law enforcement the ability to apply for grants to get training and behavioral threat assessment training and data analytical tools to identify these threats beforehand.